4, 3.
We'll do it live!
Now we're live! Aaron Kennedy. The general craziness of it, the impact on your life.
We have gone through so many stories and we said, you know what? This should not be kept to the two of us. Hi, Megan Glaros.
Hi. You know, every time that intro goes, I think there's so many stories to be told about that business that we were in, which was really all about telling other people's stories. There were plenty internally, you know?
Yes. Yes. And so we are doing our darndest to find people who have similar but disparate stories from ours, because ours was more or less always in local news, right? Which meant that you were reporting from Cleveland, Ohio, about the Cleveland market to your Cleveland audience.
And I think also you and I spent a lot of time, because you were an anchor and I was in the weather, in-house, meaning in the studio. A lot of time. I would say nearly all of my career was in studio with a handful of hurricanes or something like that. But there are people who are working for the network, and that means they could be anywhere at any point, at any time, at a drop of a hat. And that's a whole nother level.
And a whole different skill set too.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So we want to show you his reel first, because you have seen him, you know him, you love him. It will be very familiar. Ready, set.
Go.
We did see investigators here on the scene still looking for shell casings and evidence. Heavy rain bands again impact this area. Another 8 inches of rain is possible before the storm moves out.
Vlad, well, the party is certainly well underway here at the Salute to our Armed Services. Paul, take a look behind me.
Good morning, Gail Van.
So Megan, would you like to introduce our guest?
He has seen it all and reported on pretty much everything that happened for a period of time while he was working at CBS. Don Champion.
Hello.
We loved seeing your face while we worked at Local. And tell everybody a little bit about exactly what it was you were doing. Like, what was your job description?
First of all, thank you just for having me. You guys were some of my favorites when I was at the network, and I always loved doing live shots with you guys. So just thank you for this time. I appreciate it. And, you know, looking at that video, it's like looking at someone else's life, because I don't even recognize anymore. You know, I got the hair now and all that. But so basically, I was at CBS News, the network, in NewsPath, which is like the affiliate service. So you get to report for like CBS Evening News, CBS Mornings, and stuff like that. But your main focus is also reporting for all of the CBS affiliates across the country, and their also their international partners like the BBC News. So it was really a cool job. You got to travel a lot, and you know, for better or worse, you got to travel a lot. But
where were you headquartered? Like, where was your, like, where did you launch from, basically?
Yeah, initially I was based in New York, and then they moved me to the Dallas bureau, which was like kind of at the time the go team. So literally every single time something happened, I got a call, had to get on a plane. When they moved me to Dallas, I bought a new car. By the end of my 2 years there, I had 3,000 miles on my car. That's how little I was home and how little I drove. Like, you know, it was crazy looking back at it.
I don't think people can grasp like what that's really like.
So I was at the network. I started like 2014 and I left 2017. So three and a half years. Yeah. So it was a long 3.5 years.
Yes. I mean, because like when I covered a couple hurricanes for the network, and I would meet up with producers in the field, and then we would work together for that, whatever it was, whatever hurricane or something.
Yeah.
Talking to them was always like eye-opening, because it was literally like, well, I just got back from, you know, Kuala Lumpur, and then when I get home, I might have a day or two. I'm going to put my expenses in, and then I'll probably be somewhere else. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's like it's thrilling, but it's like you're owned, you know, like it was grueling, but it was rewarding. One of the difficult parts is like whenever some friends would visit me or my parents, every single time I had to leave. There was not one visit by
Mm.
anyone that I was able to just stay home and enjoy it. Like it
How
was
did that make you feel? Were you sad? Were you like resentful? Like,
towards the end, yeah, like I grew resentful of it. And I remember having one moment where I have horrible allergies my whole life. And so I started getting allergy shots, but I had to go through a new round of testing and I had to keep putting it off month after month because every time I had an appointment, I had to go out of town. And I remember feeling so proud after I finally did it. And I was like, it's not good. I'm letting, my job get before my health. And so that was really a wake up call for me. So yeah. And I don't know how some people, there's people who've been at the network 30, 40 years. I don't know how they do it because like I was tired after just my 3.5.
Yeah. I've heard before that it's no plants, no pets, no produce.
Yeah, no, exactly. All I had in my fridge was alkaline water and Prosecco.
well, that's not all bad. I live on that.
Sounds very New York as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
But it
think
was cool.
when I think back on like what I learned from working with those folks, it's like you're not going to find better crews though, like in the world. Like they all have your back, they know what they're doing, they're pros, all that stuff. But I found myself a lot of times thinking like, how do you live like this on
Yeah.
a regular basis?
Yeah, no, I couldn't imagine. Like it would always be fun to like hear stories from folks. I remember, as when we were remembering Barbara Walters a few weeks ago, I actually worked with one of her old photographers one time, and he gave me like the whole secret to like how she got the glossy look. Like, like there was this French pantyhose that they would put over the lens. Like it was a specific one, he said, that they would put over the lens for her. And so, it was such a treat, getting to work with these incredible pros and also comforting, Megan, to your point, because I remember, I forget what hurricane it was, but I was like, oh Lord, like, like one funny one, I think it was Harvey. I was in Corpus Christi and, that was my first like Cat 5 storm.
That was a bad one.
Yeah, it was awful. And I remember my photographer, he'd been at the network 20 plus years or so. And we were in a brand new hotel, like a 5-story hotel. I slept with my clothes on because the building was shaking that much. Like I was like, if this thing falls apart, like I at least would have clothes on. And I remember that next morning getting up and I was like, did you sleep? And he's like, oh yeah, I slept.
He didn't care. I've been in a war zone 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I really learned to lean into that experience too. And it brought me comfort in those moments that, like that I was a little scared,
Yeah.
So Don, what was your professional arc? Why did you leave local and go to NewsPath, and why did you get out?
It just happened. Like I feel so lucky and blessed in that regard. Like before I went to New York, I was in Denver. I was at the ABC station there.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from DC.
Okay.
So yeah, I was in Denver. It was like my third job in the industry, and I really enjoyed it. But I just reached a point where, my best friend was a reporter at the station and she left and I knew what she was making and I was making like $15,000 less than her. And, it was like, I always tell people it was like God himself was telling me to take a risk. And, I knew I wanted to be back on the East Coast and like New York, and because I have family in New York, and I took a risk and like just turned down my job, the opportunity to re-sign my contract in Denver, and just moved to New York. And I mean, I did have some meetings beforehand, so I felt pretty comfortable, but I got a job at WCBS, the CBS affiliate in New York. And I started freelancing there for about a year. And then NewsPath just called me one day. Like literally that's how it happened. But, that happens frequently there because it's all in one building,
Yep. I was there too. When were you there? Like what years were you at WCBS?
2013. So we moved
2013.
to my best friend, he was a reporter too. And I was like, come on, let's move to New York. And he moved with me and we both took a risk. And so, yeah, I was there 2013 till mid 2014, I would say. And I was doing local and national, and NewsPath at the time. And then I just went to NewsPath full time.
So what were, like, when you look back on your time at NewsPath and you look back at the stories that you covered, which ones pop out in your mind as ones that you would share for like amazing moments or scary moments or whatever? Like, what are your top 3?
I definitely hurricanes they just give you such a respect for Mother Nature and this wondrous world we live on, I definitely, those are some of the memorable stories. The Great American Eclipse, that was just an amazing, like humbling experience to experience that. And just, I'll never forget how, it was daylight and then it just suddenly turned dark and it felt cold like night too. It's just, again, just a reminder of just this powerful place we call home. And then too, like, and I've been very vocal about this since I left, but like just the mass shootings and the tragedies, those still haunt me a lot. And I've had to deal with a lot of anxiety, and like I have a real strong sensitivity to gun violence now from covering every mass shooting from Newtown, the Aurora theater shooting, Pulse, like and one of the things I always prided myself off of, in reporting these stories, I didn't want to lose my humanity. I didn't want to get jaded about these experiences. And so, I cried a lot at some of those, especially Pulse, I'm gay, and, just to see that firsthand and that trauma, just, so those are some of the big memories that I have for sure.
Are you feeling that we are not covering it correctly in the media, or we shouldn't be covering it at all? What's wrong?
No, it's interesting because NPR actually, their podcast, they had an episode about this recently, and they said that, the media doesn't do enough to cover the aftermath of shootings and the long recovery process for survivors and victims' families. So I think we're sadly getting better at it, but it's still, I don't think we hold our lawmakers accountable enough on this. I mean, they're just getting away with incredible hypocrisy when it comes to the gun issue in this country. And I think that we could be tougher on them at a local level, and really, because most Americans support common sense gun control. And it's like, I think there's such power at the local level in news, and I would love to see local stations wielding that power a little bit about that, because I mean, it's sad. You can go to the grocery store. I mean, there's not a day that I'm in public that I do not think about gun violence. Like, honestly,
because you covered it so much. Are you just? Yeah, I can see that, because I think when you work in the news, and especially it has to be even more pronounced for you covering what you covered. But I would always do that, like, worst case scenario. I'm riding on the subway and I'm like, oh God, which one of these people is going to try to blow it up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that would always go through my head. And it's just because you spend all day hearing about it, listening, turning a story about it. And then it's hard to get that out kind of.
No. And, what I really hope that stations adopt more, and I think there's a paper, I want to say in Oregon, that just announced this a few weeks ago. They have in-newsroom counselors now. We don't talk about enough. I wish I had a therapist, but I was going through my dating life and all that, so I was too busy discussing that with her. But I really wish I would have unpacked some of these experiences, these secondhand PTSD moments, like, Aurora, the theater shooting. I remember, I was so scared that night because I thought my friend was in there, and just interviewing people with blood on them and just shocked. And like, to this day, if I hear that alarm, I'm instantly taken back to that night. You know what I mean? And just, I wish I would have had the opportunity to unpack those experiences when they happened. And maybe I wouldn't be dealing with what I deal with now. And so, like, if I watch too much coverage now, or if I watch violent things, I have these really like violent nightmares, like that I'm getting shot in a mass shooting. And my therapist basically said it, because that's no longer my life, my brain is kind of processing these experiences finally, which makes sense, So I would love to see more awareness around that for local reporters, for network reporters, because, your first responders too, just like the, police and fire department and paramedics, your first responders. And, it really matters. And it didn't really start manifesting itself until I left the industry. And I wish I wouldn't have had
when you weren't traveling, when you weren't so busy that your mind got a rest, and then it came back out, And I think that's one of those things where it's like, I noticed that, and I did not cover any of the stuff that you're talking about. I covered hurricanes and things like that, but it was mostly in studio for me. But coming out of the business, there's a certain level of PTSD that you have just from being in general. Like, you're afraid to say no to people. You think you got to say yes, or you're going to, all that stuff.
Yeah. No, it's a for better or worse, it's a toxic industry, And I always say, like, getting out was like getting out of an abusive relationship that I didn't
Yep.
realize was abusive until I left
Yeah.
it, you know.
So
And just,
why did you leave then, Don?
it wasn't my choice. I endured like some, you know, like so many people in this industry, you know, some really bad discrimination at CBS, and so I was kind of forced out, and it was painful as hell, you know, because this has been my passion my whole life, like since I was a kid. You know, I would always be in front of the camera on vacations, like I'm Donald Champion, you know. So a lot of it was just like mourning that dream of mine, but I'm 5 years removed now, and I'm just so glad it happened because I really got to reinvent myself, and I'm so thankful for that. So,
But I'm sure you got other offers, so why not go back in?
yeah, and that was hard, you know, Aaron, I must say, like, and I remember getting into it with my dad at one point because, you know, I wanted to hold firm and stand in my value and my worth. You know, I was making a certain amount of money at the network, and I didn't want to go down in pay, you know, and like when you're at that national level, a lot of things don't seem to make sense to you, you know, when you leave. Like I would have loved to get like an anchor job, but two, like it's the timing. Like, you know, anytime you leave a job, it has to deal with timing. And it was just bad timing for me. But I think it was meant to be. You know, I'm certainly happier now. I have balance in my life. I still work a lot, and, you know, work can be stressful, but it's a healthier stress level, you know.
A more normal stress level.
No, exactly. And so you know, it was hard, but I'm glad it happened, and I'm thankful that I'm in that space where I can say that now because
Right.
I had some really dark days after that, you know, and it was hard, you know.
Also, I love your hair.
Oh, thank you.
Were you not allowed to wear the curls on
No.
air?
No, not at the network. In Denver, I will say my news director did let me wear my hair, but not this long. And I got best hair for reporters the newspaper those 3 years that I did grow it. So, but yeah, it's been funny. Like I'm 40, and it's like I'm just now being able to grow my hair out and just like experiencing normalness. You know?
Yeah, I totally get that. When
You know.
after Aaron and I got let go on that fateful day, the next time I went to get my hair done, because of course it was during COVID, I was like, put pink in it. I put a pink, like, what was I doing? I'm like, at this point, I'm like a 30-something-year-old or whatever it was, or I was turning 40, I think, and I was like, oh my God, I'm putting pink in my hair.
No,
But
it's
it
a
felt
little
so
thing.
liberating.
Yeah, it's so liberating.
It's
And
control over your body, which is not a little thing.
No, it's a big thing.
It's a
I
big
couldn't
thing.
even imagine it for women like you guys, like, you know, like just, and again, that's one of those things you look back and like, why did I deal with that? Like, why was that okay? You know, and like, I do love, like, you know, for Black women, like getting to see them wear braids and stuff like that now, you know, there are some gains being made in the industry, but still not enough, you know.
Right.
And I think people like on-air people for their authenticity and their individuality, and it's like they prevent you from showing that aspect of you so much, you know, which is just not right.
I'm going to show some pictures that you sent. So this is Dawn. I mean, this is classic. I felt like I knew you, Dawn. It's so fun to
know,
look back at
right?
these pictures. And then you grabbed this one, which I'm so happy to see. So this was me and Lionel in Chicago and you in DC.
Yes, that was that big DC blizzard. I forget what year, but that was definitely the before picture. The after, I was buried. I always loved, you know, like on that shift, that was when I was on the morning shift, you really get in a rhythm of like live shots, and like you're doing, you know, depending on the story, I could have like 100 live shots, but
Yeah,
I
so
knew
you said you liked us, but how were we any different from everybody else? Because it's a scripted intro, it's a scripted tag.
Well, I think because I'm friends with Lionel, and then, you know, like your station was one that I knew I could be myself, and like, you know, I could, you know, riff off of you too as well. And so that just really, you know, when you're in that cycle, it's like, oh, good, I have Aaron and Lionel coming.
There up next. Yep.
Yeah, it felt safe, you know, like, so yeah.
Good.
So
Here's
many
a question. Do you feel like now that you're in, you know, the regular world, do you feel like you've got like some of the most clutch, amazing stories though to tell just because of everything you saw?
Yeah, no, for sure. And, you know, like it's again, it's like as I relive these, I'm like, I feel like I've lived like two different lives, you know, like Yeah, and I think too, for me, like it's been interesting just leveraging those experiences and that experience in news and like just transitioning it into the space I'm in now. It's been like so seamless. And I didn't think it was possible when I was in news. I thought it was the only thing I could do. You know what I
Same.
mean? I didn't know that my skills could be useful elsewhere. And so that's been one of the most remarkable parts for sure.
Right. So this was one of the many reasons, Don, that we wanted to have you on.
Oh.
Your pivot out of news has been so successful that you, I think like me and Megan though too, we're fielding a lot of phone calls from journalists who are in the industry now who are like, how do I do this?
Yeah.
And
How
so you
do I
wrote a
get
book
out?
about it.
Yeah, no, and I came up with this book just because, like you said, you get reached out to a lot, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm the poster child of leaving news and like success, like not at all, But I just really wanted to empower people because, like news is one of those special industries where it's like, we're all so passionate about the work that we do, but you're also beaten down to a pulp so much in that sometimes you just start to question your like your worth and what you bring to the table. And, I certainly, when people reach out to me, I spend a lot of time with them, just like empowering them and letting them know that you have incredible skills that are in demand in other industries. And so that was what I was hoping to do with this book, just like empower people and let them know, like, you can do something else and be just happy, fulfilled, and make more money, like, and just, and I just don't think when you're in that grind, when you're in the industry, you have such blinders on because of just everything that you're dealing with, and, I just hopefully when people read this, they can take a pause and just like really see themselves truly for what they bring to the table. And, hopefully if they are thinking about making a change, that, it gives them a little oomph and a little power to do so, so, and also just because people, it does take a lot of time when people reach out, which I'm always happy to do.
Yeah, you get my book
Read my
first.
book.
Yeah, I want
Get back
to
to
be a
me.
resource, to scale, because like in this
Yeah.
job I am in now, I've learned to scale things and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it's kind of just a reflection of that.
God, what you said there, right there, though, about being in the industry and it sort of takes away some of your self-worth.
Mhm.
I never thought of that before, but until you said it right now, but I think that's what I felt, probably what you felt, Aaron, when you get out. It's like you have to build yourself back up a little bit. And it's such a weird thing. Like I
Yeah.
never thought about it that way before, but it's like, my God, yeah, I don't think I had the same level of confidence that I have now.
It was so much a part of your identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much a part of your identity.
And like so much so, like I remember, when I started here, I'm like, I am smart. Like I'm smart. Like, you know what I mean? Like it just, the industry had degraded me so much that I just looked at myself as just like not valuable. You know what I mean? And
Yes. I know exactly what you mean.
yeah, because you think about it, like the pressures from your bosses, and then emails from viewers. Like the loudest ones are always these ignorant people. It seeps into your brain a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was all about just empowering folks, and and I was really torn with it too, because I think this is such an incredible time, for an incredibly important time for journalism. And so it's not like I'm trying to advocate for people to leave the industry, because I think it is so important still, and so that's kind of that tension point that I had in like even releasing this, because I didn't want to make it seem like I was like, get out, come, I don't want to be like that. But, for those who are considering it, I just really wanted to empower them.
That's awesome.
Before we move through our questions here, Don, can you tell me what a salary range would be for a NewsPath reporter? Because I have no point of reference.
So it depends. Like I know CBS pays less than the other networks, but I was making 140 when I was there, which I mean.
Living in New York, that's not a lot of money.
Dallas.
Yeah.
No, in New York, it was awful. Like I couldn't. But Dallas, there was no state income tax. Like so I was really able to see it. But
And you got per diem when you were traveling too,
Yeah,
right?
and
Like
that
that's one thing with the network that's different. Like
Yeah.
that was like, oh, you get per diem for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Even if you don't eat it, you know what I mean? Like
No, exactly. Yeah. So I was able to make a little bit more, but and I think too, like with the way the industry is going, and I know there's rules and all this, but like I think we need to be a little more open about our salaries, because some of these folks are just, some of these stations now are just like,
Bad.
taking advantage of people. And, I think that could be like really good protection for folks. Like if we're a lot more open about what we're making.
Right. Yeah. But you're right. We're very private about it.
Yeah.
All right, Don, share your craziest story.
Craziest story at the network or local?
Wherever.
I want your craziest story.
Okay. So when my second job was in Jackson, Mississippi, and there was just always something crazy going on there. I covered one time a story about a hit and run and a fire at a location. Turns out the story was a woman was cheating with a man across the street, a married man. The woman comes across the street, sets the man's house on fire. The man's wife is pulling up. She runs over the woman with her car. Crazy. Like that was just a typical story in Jackson, Mississippi.
Wow.
That'll leave you with some PTSD.
I know that was a mouthful.
That is wow.
Right, you mentioned this a second ago. Craziest viewer letter or comment.
And I have to give it to one of my good girlfriends, Teresa Marchetta, a veteran like anchor and investigative reporter in Denver. I really learned from her how to be nice, nasty with responses. So like I can be professional, but if you're going to be ignorant, I'm going to be nice, nasty back to you. So I remember this woman like wrote me, she tweeted me about S's or something like nice. And I was like, like you don't have to do too many S's or something like that. And I tweeted her back, thanks. So, yeah. But, people think that they can just say whatever they want to you,
they do.
And that's, it's kind of just the reality. But like, I always just made a point to like, respond professionally, but also sassy. Okay.
Did you get as many viewer comments when you were a Newspath reporter? Because I would feel like people probably would reach out more to local people.
Yeah. I'd say the ones I got when I was at Network were a lot more positive, and that is something I appreciated. Local, yeah, most definitely.
It's brutal.
Yeah, it ran the gamut. Like also in Jackson, like this couple emailed me one time too. Like it was weird.
Oh boy.
Why not?
Yeah.
This is probably a tough one for you. Most dangerous assignment.
And this I talk about this in the book too. This was the night of the Dallas police shooting. My photographer and I were actually in Baton Rouge covering the Alton Sterling shooting. We had been working 15 hours already. Finally got back to our hotel, dog tired. I'm in the shower, my phone's blowing up. I get out and they're like, get back to Dallas. And it's like 8:00 at night. And there's no more flights. And my vice president, we're going back and forth with the desk, and my vice president emails me, pack your shit. Oops, sorry. Can I say pack your S?
I do sometimes.
Okay, so pack your shit and drive back to Dallas. So after working all day, being tired, I drove to Dallas overnight. I let my photographer sleep because happy photog, happy day, So I let him sleep. But I looking back, I shudder, like thinking about just how tired I was, and just I worked that next day till like 4 or 5 p.m. And then
isn't that why it's such a knife in the heart when you're laid off, though? Because you're a good soldier doing the good work, saying yes, even though you feel like it could be unsafe, and there's no loyalty on the back end.
And none of it matters, and it's just like it sucks. It really does. And I think that's one of the things I value so much about this space I'm in now. I feel a sense of agency over my career and my life. And I know I can do A, B, and C. And there's more of a blueprint for success than in news where, you get a new boss and they're like, oh, I don't like them. And literally when they let me go from the network, the vice president at the new one who fired me, she told my agent, he's just not my type. Simple as that.
And that was it.
Yep. So it's just like, oh, yeah.
All right. Tell me you worked in news without telling me you worked in news.
I can't take off in February or May.
What?
The ratings month.
Or November. Sometimes July.
So stupid. Looking back, like, because I don't see Dawn on, I'm not going to watch the news now. Like, it's just so, you look back and it's like, oh. Yeah, but that was definitely one.
Yeah, that's a hard one to, again, with the TV PTSD, you're like, somebody's planning a vacation in May and you're like, oh, I can't. Oh, wait, I can.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting when you wrap your mind around the fact that, like, wait a second,
Yeah.
I don't have to pay attention to that anymore.
You can have Thanksgiving off.
Yeah. No, and like I actually, my first job out of news, I had to put holidays on my calendar because I had no concept of them. I was about to go in to work on a holiday, and I thank goodness I was speaking to a coworker or something, and I'm like, dang, I didn't even know, like, you know,
What's a holiday?
no concept of them. Yeah,
No,
exactly.
what was the holiday, Don, that you did not know?
Oh, it was something in September because I started
Labor Day?
I don't know. No, no.
He
like,
still doesn't understand the holiday.
Yeah, no,
Nobody
no.
knows what a holiday is in this business. No.
Exactly.
Longest time on air.
Oh, definitely the mass shootings, I would say. You know, I remember the Aurora theater shooting. I was out there, that happened like around midnight. I was out there like by 1:30, and we didn't go off air that day till like midnight the next day. So it was a long day. So definitely those type of stories. Yeah. It's a marathon of a day.
Oh, for sure.
All right. I'm sure this is in your book, but some talent you learn through working in this industry that other people can put into their own life lesson.
Just lean into video. Like I've found so much success just introducing the concept of video and storytelling in the roles that I've been in. And I went to, you know, you think about some of the research, like 84% of all communications online last year were video or streaming, you know, and it's like that's starting to reflect itself in corporate spaces as well. So I've just really leaned into that superpower of mine to produce video. Also, like just those journalistic instincts that we have. I remember at Alaska at the beginning of the pandemic, I was on the leadership team there, and I had the opportunity to like influence like the managing director from my org, and we were discussing like whether or not to let people work from home. And this is when COVID was just starting to come out, and I'm like,
Alaska Airlines, just for those who don't know.
Yeah, Alaska Airlines, and because of my journalism instincts, I'm like, this is going to be a big deal, so we need to pay attention to this. You know, it's just incredible how much of what I did then like influences what I do now, and it's like
100%.
Superpowers that have really helped me be successful out here, you know. And
like you have a spidey sense about stuff, like how people will react to something. This is going to resonate. This won't.
No, exactly. So yeah, those would be
all right. Don, how do people find your book?
So it's on you can go to my website, nodmediaconsulting.com. Once again, nodmediaconsulting.com. And there's a link on there, and there's a paperback, Kindle, and direct PDF version download as well. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Also, I'm so proud of you ladies as well. Just congrats on your success since the industry. And I love what you're doing on this platform and just empowering others. And I just really love to see
We have too many good stories not to like emphasize it, right?
Exactly. No, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Don, thank you so much for being with us.
No problem. Great to see you guys.
Bye, everybody.